I'm Lori Coates, one of the coordinators of the BAIT team for Davis School District.
I'm Jocelyn Ruiz, BCBA and coordinator of the BAIT team.
And I'm Crystal Martin, a coordinator on the BAIT team.
And we are back with another episode of the BAIT Debate podcast, where our team of behavior analysts talk about behavior in schools and share strategies and stories about responding to situations that may come up when working with students. Today we are talking about a fun topic, talking about elopement and how to respond appropriately. So first, Lori, how do we assess immediate danger with elopement?
This is a really critical thing when it comes to elopement, because this is where I think we all get a little anxious when we have a child running out of the classroom, running around the building, those kinds of things. So the very first thing we need to do is safety first and determine whether the elopement puts the student or others in immediate danger. So those would be things like running into the street, leaving the building, entering just unsafe areas. Over the summer, we had a school that was under construction doing painting, and they had certain things taped off, and a student kept going back into those places where all those fumes were.
Oh, yeah.
So that was an unsafe elopement. We needed to be careful about how we manage that. And then it's important, once we assess that danger and where are we, like if the student is mainly just running. I had a student many years ago, my favorite elopement student, my favorite running student, who would run every time and go hide behind the red couch in the office. Well, that's not very unsafe, right? I know where they are. I know it's predictable for me. I can have a predictable response for that student, those kinds of things. So if it's a high-risk situation, then the team needs to initiate emergency procedures, alert administration, and follow your district protocol. Like that just needs to be, step number one. If it's low risk, then we may want to really reconsider how we are following the student, like maintaining a distance or avoid chasing unless safety is at risk. What ends up happening in schools is a student starts to run and all these adults start running after them, and now it's a game of tag.
That was me last week.
Was it?
It was the first time I was watching the student, and I didn't know, but he eloped outside, and I was like, I really don't know this student well yet.
Yes.
But after a few seconds, it was very clear that it was a game of tag, and we needed to withdraw that attention.
We need to quit playing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's what I've said to schools several times, quit playing tag. You're just playing a game. And then the other thing to remember when we're assessing that immediate danger is that our response as a staff member needs to be calm. And like you said, with that case, to prevent that reinforcement of behavior as much as possible, so you don't escalate it further. If we're playing a game of tag and we start eloping outside the building, a student may elope into the neighborhood or other things, which is much more dangerous if we continue to chase and provide that attention. So how do we identify the function of elopement?
Yeah. This is when we're going to consider our ABC data, looking for patterns that happen, what's happening before or after the elopement. I think most often we see escape or avoidance as the function for an elopement. The student may be trying to avoid a non-preferred task or social interactions. Maybe they're transitioning to a class that they don't want to go to, or maybe they're trying to get away from sensory discomfort. So we see a lot of that avoidance when they're eloping. Other reasons, they may be looking for attention. So as you said, may become that game of chase. So they're looking for the big adult reaction and response. Maybe the student's trying to run to a location where they know that they can access a preferred activity or item.
Or person.
Or a person.
I saw this kid I think it was last year, was eloping so that he could go and say hi to his sister in another classroom.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah.
The student may also be looking for that sensory input of just running. It may be internally reinforcing by moving and running. So there's a lot of different options that could be the function of elopement. Jocelyn, how can we manage adult attention strategically?
Well, first, avoid chasing or excessive verbal attention unless safety requires it, because by providing that attention, we may unintentionally be reinforcing that elopement, and by playing tag, that student gets further away, and especially if we're outside, that can put us in a more severe situation. So that would be the first thing, is to avoid giving too much attention. And then when you are walking back to class, use neutral minimal attention as well. Again, you don't want to reinforce that attention by giving them more attention than they need. So just keep it neutral and minimal. And then when they are staying in expected areas and they're not running away, use this as an opportunity to reinforce them for that appropriate behavior. So in here, then you can provide that calm, positive attention for them following directions. How do we examine triggers and conditions?
Well, really important to start with the question, what are they escaping from, if it's escape, right? So you got to go back to the functions that Crystal was talking about earlier. Is the work too hard or unclear? Is, like Crystal said earlier, is the environment too noisy or overstimulating? Are transitions unpredictable or rushed? And then are staff interactions escalating stress generally? So you're really going to pay attention to the details surrounding the elopement, and then modify those antecedents to reduce that need to escape. I think it's important to start from an escape perspective when you're looking at that. And then again, looking at how you're managing the attention. So if a student really is seeking attention, how can I get the attention to them for the positive behaviors, like you said, in that calm way, and reinforcing when they're in the right place at the right time?
Yeah.
Right? Like setting up reinforcement systems that give them a lot of that attention so they don't have to fight for it. How can we teach replacement and coping skills to students, Crystal?
Yeah, I think, especially if we're looking at this as an escape function, we can teach them appropriate ways to replace just running out of a room. We can teach them how to request a break. Maybe teaching them to ask directly. Maybe teaching them, say, can I have a break? Or providing them with a break card that they could hold up to signal that they're needing a break at that moment. They could even just point to the calm corner, point to where they need to go, some kind of signal that tells the teacher what they're needing, or having them ask for help would be another option. When we're thinking of these replacement skills, we want to give them lots of opportunities to practice these proactively, and we want to reinforce when the students use them correctly. We're going to practice when the student is calm and ready to learn. And we want to
get
pair.
worried about that.
Yeah, I think we can't teach in the moment of an escalation. They're not going to learn then, but when they're calm.
Right.
Pairing adult assistance and calm language. When they're staying in safe areas, that's going to help the student as well.
Yeah.
Jocelyn, how do we plan a predictable response?
We need to ensure that all staff know exactly what to do when elopement occurs. So things like who is going to follow the student, who is going to tell the office, and where are we going to position ourselves so that the student can be safely monitored. This year we had a situation where we had a student who eloped, and it was very clear that the function of the student's behavior was attention. And so we had our staff kind of standing behind a pillar watching the student because the student was by the front office doors and was just waiting for the staff to come in sight so that he could exit out of the doors. And the office staff weren't aware of what the function of the behavior was, so their perception was that the student is going to go out and he's going to be out in a dangerous situation. So we had to have a good conversation and some good problem solving so that everybody was on the same page and they understood that when this was happening, it was important to minimize that attention instead of providing more. So by standing out of sight where the staff could still monitor the student, this was the intervention that we needed to do. So plan your response and make sure everybody is aware of what they need to do. How can collecting and reviewing data help?
Well, we always need to be collecting data. It's just part of what we do to help us determine what's going on, as well as to see how our interventions are supporting that. So you want to track when, where, and under what conditions the elopement is happening. And as we've talked about, you want to note staff responses and student outcomes to guide those interventions. And then we need to use that data to determine if the elopement is actually decreasing, and data on those emerging behaviors. Are we teaching those? How are they coming along? How is the break card working? I know a lot of people get nervous about break cards generally because then a student is just going to always ask for a break and get out of work, right? And they will for a little while, but they tend to back off of that as they get more academic success. So maybe measuring even the academic success and where are we in that would be an important part of the data. All right, our favorite topic, Crystal. I know it's not always yours because you want to talk about communication, but our next favorite topic is where do relationships and rapport building fit in on this?
Yeah, I was thinking that I think in any topic or subject that we talk about, we're going to talk about rapport because it is so important. And when we build that positive rapport with our student, the student is going to feel safe and supported. I'm working with a student right now who we recognize when he is able to communicate his wants and needs, the escalations don't happen, if we're giving him that chance to communicate with us. And then we understand better what his needs are.
Right.
And we're using that, as you mentioned earlier, co-regulation strategies to model calm behavior and validate students' feelings. When students are young, especially, they learn regulation strategies as they get older, but when they're younger, they need our support in that area. And having a positive connection can reduce escape behaviors over time.
Yeah. Definitely. They want to be around you, right?
Yeah.
I remember a question that used to be on the teacher interview, and at first I didn't like the question, and then over time I was like, I actually like the question. I think it's an important one, where they would ask potential teachers, do you want students to like you? And at first I was like, well, I don't know that that's your goal. But over time, I'm like, you do want them to like you because you want them to have that relationship, to want to be in your class, to enjoy what's happening in your room, right? Those are important concepts for staying where you are, right place at right time.
Right.
Yeah. Well, thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Bait Debate. We got to talk about elopement today, which is a really tricky behavior in a school setting especially. We hope that the ideas shared were meaningful to you. We have many more topics this year to keep you and your educator friends reeled in. Remember that we're on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Spotify, and Audible. So like and share, and we'll catch you next time.